In many parts of the world, suicide is considered as the second most reason among the teenagers. National Crime Records Bureau said that in every hour, a teenager is committing suicide. This topic is very, very important to discuss in our super parent community. Joining me, Mr. Praveen Parameshwar, the CEO of the company. Praveen, I would like to ask you a question on this. Everybody is afraid of death, but still, why the suicide is occurring repeatedly?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me give you a scenario like this. You are inside a tunnel. A tunnel. And the tunnel is closed. You're not able to move forward. Full of darkness. You feel you are unworthy to leave. You lose trust on all other people that they would come and help you. You lose hope in this world. And you're so fearful about darkness. Survival, or you will survive, or die. Because, number one, feeling of unworthiness. I'm not so good, I'm a good for nothing person. Second, losing trust on others. Third, hopelessness about future. Four, fear, pain kind of feelings. Five, diseases. That this disease is killing me, better let me, okay? So these feelings are in fact awful than fear of death. So that's why even though death is triggering a lot of fear in the mind of people don't mind to commit suicide if these things are there in life, because these things are awful than fear of death. That's why people commit suicide.
I would want to connect with the same analogy, right? How this darkness is coming in this tunnel. See, the children, they are getting enough facilities and they are cared in every family, and still this darkness, and how they're feeling worthiness, how they're feeling this kind of suicidal tendencies. How it is evolving, that's the question.
Many examples. Let me give you one example. A very common prevailing example, which we all have to expect to happen in all of our life very soon. Say your child is uploading a video in YouTube or in Facebook, a teenager, but he or she is getting just 2 likes in a day. But his friends, when they are uploading videos, they are getting 20 likes or 200 likes. Just because of this scenario, the child may think that I'm good for nothing person, that's why people are not considering me. This is one example. Let's take another example. So you have 2 children, and when one child is getting marks in exams, you are rewarding them. You may be rewarding them because that exam may be a very important exam in their lifetime. But when another kid is getting marks in exams, maybe less important exams, you're not rewarding them with any gift. You may be doing that just because that exam is less important. But the possibility is that the child would think, so I am good for nothing person. You're getting the point?
Yeah.
So these kind of very simple scenarios may also imbibe the thought that you are good for nothing, so hopelessness in life. These things may creep in. So to commit suicide, the reason may not be very, very, big reason.
Okay.
It may be a very trivial reason, but trivial for others. When we look from outside, it's a trivial reason, but generally, for the people who commit suicide, that may be a very important reason.
I think I have read in one article regarding this. The influence of social media is also one of the most prevailing reason in the United States. For this.
It is, and that's what I was trying to say, because even the number of likes or number of views for the video you post may be a reason which is triggering the thought to commit suicide. So this is one reason, and all the suicides are not because of social media, so let's not think about that as well, because nowadays we do have the tendency to connect every negatives with the use of social media, gadgets or gaming. No, not always, but that is one of many reasons which triggers children to commit suicide.
Okay.
Yes.
Praveen, my next question is having two
Yeah.
parts.
Uh-huh.
Part number one is that how can we find out whether the child is having tendency or symptoms of suicide? That's number one. Number two is that how can parents take measurable step or safeguard
Yeah.
the child from the suicide?
Yeah. Number one, you closely watch your child. Okay, first of all, a child who seems to be very happy, very dynamic, very active may also commit suicide. Okay, not necessary that every children who are going to commit suicide could give you a signal and then they do that. Not necessary. But what you can do is, number one, closely monitor your child every time. Number one. Number two, if they start talking anything about ending up their life, say for an example, during a conversation or an argument, they say that I'm going to kill me. Take a note of that. That may be because they start thinking something about that. Number three, normally the police says, so the children who commit suicide or who have tendency to commit suicide normally search on internet about various methods to commit suicide. So may not be for older people like 20 years, 25 years. For your 12-year-old, 13-year-old child, you have to keep a track of their internet search for sure. So you have to monitor them, you have to keep an eye on their internet search. It is very important to listen whether they are talking about suicide, and also about you have to keep a track of their mindset. Are they feeling unworthiness? Are they feeling hopeless? Are they losing trust on you? Which is very important, because for a teenager, so parents are the most important factor in their life. If they feel that, if they lose trust on you and they feel that you are losing, they are losing, or you are losing trust about them, so the probability is that, the child may be thinking something in an extreme manner. So only through continuous observation about these aspects you can come to know that whether the child is prone to suicides more. And the second part of your question is what parents can do. Yeah. Oh, tough thing, but I can tell it this way. Number one, you have to engage in continuous conversation with your kids, specifically about growth, future, and opportunities. How many of you have done this in your lifetime till date? How many of you are spending quality time, not every day may not be, but at least once in a week to converse with your child? Let me tell you, not to advise them, but to engage in conversation and listen to them, number one. Number two, you have to create a safety net for them, a net to fall back. And what is that net? Relatives and friends. So you have to take them to your home, your relatives' home, your friend's home, and you have to allow them to go to their friend's home, because the child should feel that there are people around me who I can fall on when I have a problem in my life, which is very important. Because you might have gone through Harvard grant study, a fantastic study by Harvard University says the people who are happier in life are people who are connected with maximum number of people. Now we are enjoying the bliss of nuclear families. Good in many terms. But you have to ensure that many nuclear families are at least well knitted and connected, which is very important. So if number one is engage in conversation with your child, second, very important to make sure you're creating a safety net around them. And number three, you should talk good about them. See, I have seen when children come with a new art or a work or talking about their aspirations to parents, parents consider it as very trivial, childish kind of stuff. No, you have to, even if you, say for a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old, what they talk would be nonsense or trivial, but for them, it's a gem of an idea. So you have to pay your ear to them, you have to pay your attention, you have to appreciate them, encourage them, and through that you have to create a feel that they are worthy. You have to give them hope, you have to encourage them, which is very important. And what more, you have to reward them continuously, which is very important. So the people who have watched other videos on Lifology might have noticed that we promote incentivization and the rewards a lot, because the research and the studies says that works very well. So that is also very important. And another one is, See, it would be good if you are spiritual, it's good to connect children to spirituality. Religion, your choice. But spirituality is very important, because by imbibing the notion of spirituality, you are in fact creating a threat between that person, between your child and a notion or a concept or a belief, which is very important to keep them. So even if they don't get anybody to fall on, so they get somebody, spirituality can act as a safety net at some point of time, which is very important. So these are some of the things which parents can do. And one more thing is, expose children, talk about suicides too with children, which is very important.
I didn't get
Talk
that.
about suicide.
Talking about suicide.
About suicide. Because, see, where from children are getting information about suicide? So, through media or through movies or through social media, anyway your children are getting exposed to suicide, right? Anyway your children are getting exposed to the notion of suicide. So what is the message they are getting from there? They are getting a message that there is something called suicide. They are getting another message, people are considering suicide as a resort when problems occur in life. They are getting a message, when there are problems in life, suicide is being considered as one solution by many people. So this is what exactly the message they get from media and the outer world. Am I correct or not?
Yeah.
So that means they are getting exposed to the notion of suicide, this angle of suicide.
Okay.
But who will give them the other angle of suicide, that suicide is not a solution for all this? You have to. So nowadays the media is publishing news regarding suicide, there is a disclaimer kind of a line at the bottom that suicide is not the solution for any problem in life. Who is going to read that?
And some helpline number, I believe.
Absolutely, but who is going to read that? So you open conversation about suicide, reduce the stigma about such conversation, and you have to introduce that suicide is not a reason, not a solution for any problems. You have to engage in conversation with your children regarding that, and expose the negatives of suicide to children as well. Because many parents don't talk about suicides to children because that they fear if they talk about suicide, children start thinking about suicide.
But in actuality, it's the other way around.
No, because there is no study exists which says talking about suicide trigger the idea of suicide in the mind of people. But talking about the other side of suicide is so powerful to reduce the mindset in children that suicide is a solution for some problems.
And so sometimes maybe this kind of discussion can help the children or understand whether they are also having this kind of diabolical thoughts.
Very important, very important. It's like, see how this happens. Number one, so we listen about suicide from somewhere.
Yeah.
We get the information that it's a kind of solution. Then we forget it. But at the bottom of the mind, it is there. In the bottom of the mind, it is there. So when we face with a solution in future, a problem in future, and there are no solutions around, the mind get diverted or get driven to suicide, which we forgot long back. We dig and get the solution back, and people go for, people commit suicide. This is how it works. So these kind of discussions or any open discussion inside the home happening should in fact reprogram the mind of children in a way that there are many people who commit suicide or consider suicide as a solution, but it's not a real solution at all. So such kind of reorientation of mind is important. So rather than rekindling the thoughts, it is in fact reprogramming the mind, because the other side is already there in the mind.
Okay.
Which is very important.
Okay, that's a great thought, Praveen.
Yeah.
And still, see, I wanted to ask you some more things. Are there any specific notable symptoms like sitting alone, or they are doing some kind of self-harm?
Yeah.
Something like that? Any kind of...
Yeah, kind of. You can see it. Number one, more number of people, not necessarily all, more number of people who are prone to suicide or who have the tendency to suicide, they may be sitting idle for a long time, number one. Number two, they may be talking negatives about themselves. They may be proclaiming that I am useless and unworthy. They may be talking low about them. And they may be sharing ideas with parents that, the ideas of hopelessness. That means, I don't think that I can win this, or I don't think that I can be a great person. I don't think that I can be successful. So those kind of things would be there. They may continuously complain that nobody is trusting them. They may continuously complain about that. And then they may be reading more about suicides or negative things in life. Or they may be getting addicted to something like games or, maybe games or gadgets or internet searching. Because when people are getting addicted to something, when they don't have anything else to do. Have you ever seen that a very dynamic businessman is getting addicted with cocaine?
No.
Have you ever seen that a politician with a purpose is getting addicted to alcohol? Have you ever seen that a professional who is so committed and who loves the profession or who takes it as a passion is getting addicted to gadgets? Because a person is getting addicted to something when there is no kick he is getting from something else. So it is so important that so to see whether your child is getting addicted to something, that may be a symptom that he is thinking about suicide. So these are some of the symptoms.
Yeah, it's not only the parents, maybe a good conversation with the friends of the child, teachers of the child, will that be
of course, because if the child is spending more time with friends or other people or with teachers, so an open conversation with them would help you to understand better about your child, for sure.
Sometimes the change of the behavior.
Oh yeah, correct. So you have to, of course.
See, but Praveen, there's one more problem, that mostly some of the parents may not be having that kind of command on language, or sometimes they may not be able to communicate properly. In such situation, is it a good idea to approach a professional, or if we are approaching a professional, who should be the person for this kind of
Good point. So 3 points I want to share. Number one, not necessary that every problems can be handled by ourselves. Even if after going through or after you take an attempt to do something what we shared over this video with you, so if you think that the problem is not well resolved, you should be ready to take an external support, number one. Number two, the external support can be from various sources. It can be a religious leader. Religious leader means a spiritual leader who can help you in this. Because see, the solution for suicide is not always psychological. It may be philosophical as well. Because giving hope to live is not always been done, can always be done by a psychologist. Maybe a spiritual leader can do the same. So number one, or you can take him to a clinical psychologist. So, but if you are confused, that's the third point. If you're confused, so who should you consult with? You can of course be in connection with Lifology, and our Lifologist will analyze the scenario and help you to find out the right solution. That's also possible. And just one more thing which I missed out before, it's so important to introduce your child to positive content. Because nowadays we consume a lot of negative, dark content. You start reading a newspaper, you read about rape or about death or about the financial collapse or about the pandemic. So almost 80% of the news you consume are negative news. Even when we converse, so normally we converse about negatives, may not be about ourselves but about others. So 80% of the content we consume on a day-to-day basis is normally negative content. So it is very, very important to make sure you expose your child to positive content, maybe the motivation textbook or motivation speakers, or the content in Lifology, or the positive conversation happening at home. So it is very important to make sure we expose children to positive content. Because if we go through the end, if media is considered to be the only source of content, then easily people will become hopeless. People lose trust in this world because we consume that much of negative content. So negative content may be reality, but there is positive content as well. So it's so important to expose your child to positive content. Yes.
Positive thoughts, etc. and so on.
Of course, yeah.
We spoke a lot about the numbers. We spoke a lot about the problem and the solution as well. But however, this is not a problem without any solution. Let's work together. Lifology is always there with you. If you have any problem related to the suicidal thoughts of your child, kindly connect with us. I would like to quote a great famous person who lived in the past, a historic figure. 2 things that you want to give to your child. 1, give them hope and give them love. Wishing you all the best, and thank you very much, Praveen, for joining us. Thank you.